Hi, welcome to another episode of Bethany Talks About Stuff. I'm your host, Bethany F. DeVores, author of the Sea Adrasian Chronicles, available from Amazon. This episode is going to be a little bit different than my normal content. Normally, I talk about pop culture stuff in a fun way, my top 10 favorite police movies, my top 5 favorite video games, yada, yada. But in this episode, I want to take a particular part of a video game and kind of pull it apart and look at why it's stupid.
Stupid!
I'm going to be doing a little bit more of this. There are some things that I've noticed in gaming in general that I think are stupid. Like the brain rot is starting to creep into my last bastion of true entertainment, that is video games. And I just want to point it out because I want to stop it before it gets any worse. Now, I personally cannot single handedly do that, of course, but I want to do my part, and that is to make people think about it. So I have a few things I want to talk about. This particular video is going to be one. I also want to talk about things like why I think Pan Am, the character of Pan Am in Cyberpunk 2077, is just an awful, awful person. Things like that. That being said, in this episode, I want to talk about Assassin's Creed Unity, and I want to talk about Arno's final speech at the end of the game. I got to give you a little bit of background as to the assassins in general in the Assassin's Creed IP in the series. So assassins traditionally are a secret group that are fighting against the Templars, another secret group. And the Templars want to take over the world and bring about peace through complete control. They don't want people to have free will. They don't want them to have control. They just want them to be mindless drones to do what they want. And that will bring peace to the world. Where the assassins are like, yes, we also want peace. However, we think people should have their individual freedoms and we're not willing to give that up. So they try to protect people and keep them free.
But they'll never take our freedom!
Okay. Basic. Very, very basic. This particular speech kind of, to me, shows where the whole series has started to go wrong. And this was a while ago. So the assassins have some like bylaws, loosely. They have 3 basic rules, and they're put forth in the first Assassin's Creed, and Altair, the main character, gets in trouble for not following the rules, and it looks like this.
First and foremost, stay your blade.
From the flesh of an innocent.
The second tenet is that which gives us strength. Hide in plain sight. Let the people mask you such that you become one with the crowd. The third and final tenet, the worst of all your betrayals. Never compromise the Brotherhood.
Okay, sure. Those sound like good rules to me. But then they have like an overlying motto.
Nothing is true. Everything is permitted.
And the very first time I heard that in one of these video games, I was like, ugh, that's awful. Like, obviously, some things have to be true. And not everything can be permitted. And in fact, the assassin's own bylaws indicate that not everything is permitted. You can't go around killing innocent people. You can't give away your identity, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, that doesn't make any sense. So then later in the series, Ezio tries to explain it. Now he's got himself a little girl pal in Assassin's Creed Revelations. It ends up becoming his actual wife after he's, tomcatted around for a while in the other games. So he's trying to explain to her what this actually means. This conversation actually makes really no sense to me at all.
You mentioned a creed before. What is it?
Nothing is true. Everything is permitted.
That is rather cynical.
It would be if it were doctrine, but it is merely an observation of the nature of reality. To say that nothing is true is to realize that the foundations of society are fragile, and that we must be the shepherds of our own civilization. To say that everything is permitted is to understand that we are the architects of our actions, and that we must live with their consequences, whether glorious or tragic.
I don't know. Maybe. Whatever. By this point in the series, we're pretty far in, so you understand kind of where in the series we are kind of in the middle, right? So Unity's kind of in the middle. Syndicate was the last of the original, what I would call the original Assassin's Creed. They were the original format, how the parkour and the mechanics worked and everything. And then they went to Origins and like found a whole new, they did a big open world RPG style as opposed to the more linear Assassin's Creed games. So Unity was getting close to the end of that, and they frankly were becoming pretty um narratively bankrupt. It's the only way I can think to say it. The game's story was getting pretty bad. And there's like this overall modern day story, and the modern day people are reliving their ancestors' lives or somebody's lives through genetics. It's complicated. It's goofy. It's an excuse to let you go back in time and play as an assassin. That's all it really is. It's very convoluted, though. This particular game, Arno is our main character. It's set during the French Revolution in Paris, and I love, believe it or not, I love the setting. Although the French Revolution is not it should not be glorified. It was very brutal and bloody and horrifying. At the end, he does win against the main villain. Story is very convoluted, though. At this point, at the point you get to the climax of the game, I'm not even sure why I'm fighting this guy or who he is really. Like, it was very confusing. So it kind of makes sense that this last, like, final thought speech would be so cynical. Because if Arno's like me, he didn't know what the heck was going on. And then his girlfriend gets killed, and it's just, oh, boohoo, right?
Yes, very sad. Anyway.
Oh, so we get to this point, and here's his final wrap speech.
The creed of the Assassin Brotherhood teaches us that nothing is forbidden to us. Once, I thought that meant we were free to do as we would, to pursue our ideals no matter the cost. I understand now. Not a grant of permission, the creed is a warning. Ideals too easily give way to dogma. Dogma becomes fanaticism. No higher power sits in judgment of us. No supreme being watches to punish us for our sins. In the end, only we ourselves can guard against our obsessions. Only we can decide whether the road we walk carries too high a toll. We believe ourselves redeemers, avengers, saviors. We make war on those who oppose us, and they in turn make war on us. We dream of leaving our stamp upon the world. Even as we give our lives in a conflict that will be recorded in no history book. All that we do, all that we are, begins and ends with ourselves.
Is that not depressing? I mean, that made me depressed after I finished playing that game. I was like, ugh. Now, I think at one point in my life, I might have thought that was empowering. Go me. At this stage of my life, I'm like, that is horrifying. It's horrifying. It's very sad. I don't know anybody who truly lives that way that's happy. They're miserable people. If everything begins and ends with you and you alone, that's a miserable life. That is a miserable life. It also kind of takes out the need for people around you, like to have a good, for lack of a better word, a good community around you, people who influence you. That's why it's so important to surround yourself with people who love you and who will be honest with you in love, like that will help build you up and that you can also help build them up. All that we do, all that we are begins and ends with ourselves. That's not good, y'all. It's not good. This speech, if you don't tear it apart, if you don't think about it critically, you could just go, "Oh, that's uplifting," and say, "What's the big deal, Bethany? What's the big deal? What's a big deal? There's a lot in here that's a big deal. Brotherhood teaches us nothing is forbidden. Once I thought that meant we were free to do as we would, but now I get that it's not a grant of permission, it's a warning, which I don't really understand how it's warning. Maybe I'm too much of a simpleton for this, but to me, this does not sound like a warning. It just sounds stupid. But he says ideals too easily give way to dogma. Dogma becomes fanaticism, which that gives off the same energy as Yoda in the Phantom Menace.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
That's what it sounds like to me. Is the implication that we shouldn't have ideals then? Because ideals are bad and they can lead to dogma, which can then lead to fanaticism. Fear can lead to anger, anger can lead to hate, whatever Yoda said. I don't understand what the warning is other than don't become a fanatic. But you need ideals. I mean, even if you don't acknowledge that you need ideals or that you have them. You just might not recognize them. Every time you make a decision about how things should go, you have an ideal. Got ideals. Some of them may be ridiculous, some of them may be petty, some of them may be grandiose, but everybody's got them. So are you saying we shouldn't have them? I don't understand how that's a warning. It's just hmm. Now, the next point about there being no higher power, no supreme being watching to punish us for our sins. Well, you guys, I've always been open about my religion, about my faith. I am a Christian, and I I don't agree with that, obviously. Obviously, I believe in God. I believe in a higher being, a supreme authority. I believe that there is a lawgiver and that all of our natural law comes from the lawgiver. C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity points out that if there is a law, there must be a lawgiver, right? There has to be if we believe that murder is wrong, why? If there was not some inherent natural law built into our being, into the world, then we would live in anarchy because who would care? I believe that God is the ultimate authority. But even if you don't believe that, you have to acknowledge that there are some natural laws and ethics built into our society and into life in general. So saying that nothing is true, everything is permitted doesn't make sense. And there has to be some lawgiver. Now, before my Christian friends get all, oh, but you're being so judgmental, I got to point out that God is the ultimate author of justice and judgment, but he has also provided a way of grace and redemption through Jesus Christ, right? So bear in mind, the Bible says God is just, God is the author of judgment, but God is also the author of redemption and mercy, grace and love. So there's balance there. But the balance has to come from God and his word, not from us. And that kind of leads me to the when we put stock in only ourselves and only what we think and what we do and that's just a very short-sighted way to see life. And as a Christian, I find my identity in God and who he made me, and that's absolutely freeing. It's so freeing. Like I don't have to prove anything to anybody. Just need to follow what he says to do and find my identity there. And it's absolutely a relief. I it took me a long time to understand that because I thought, "Man, that sounds terrible." Like, I wanna be me, and I am still me. I am still individual. God made me that way, but my identity still comes from him and is found in him, as well as my purpose. I think that's why all of this bothers me so much, but I think even if you're not a Christian necessarily, that this should still bother you. All the navel gazing, all the being so focused on me, I, what I want, what I think, what I do, just breeds unhappiness and selfishness a very sick worldview, frankly. And I don't think people realize it. I think we have such a society that's like, slay queen, go girl.
Yes, Queen, slay, slay.
Slay your enemies! Raise up your army! Take your rightful place upon the throne!
We forget that it's not all about us. And it's very short sighted and it can really be bad. I think we also have to look at when he says, in the end, only we can guard ourselves against our obsessions. Only we can decide whether the road we walk carries too high a toll. Obviously, again, going back to my own faith, that's not true. Even if you don't believe that way, we still live in community. We still live in a world with other people. And that's really, really important. We should be guiding each other, in a healthy way. Then we believe ourselves redeemers, avengers, saviors. We make war on those who oppose us, and then they, in turn, make war on us. I wish there was never any war. But we do have to acknowledge that evil does exist. Wars do happen. And you can't just pretend like that's not a thing so that you don't have to do anything about it. Like, there are times when it is necessary to stand up to evil. And I will use the example most obvious to me would be World War II, right? So if England had never in Europe said, no, we will not bow to the Axis powers, Germany cannot have sovereignty over us. And the Americans hadn't entered the war and said, we are with you, like we agree. What would have happened? Somebody has to stand up to evil sometimes. That's just how it is. You can't just go, well, I just don't want to fight. Well, there are times it's okay to say that. There are certainly you got to pick your battles. Sometimes you have to draw a line in the sand and say no further. This is it. That's actually not a bad thing to do. I think we do a huge disservice to ourselves, to other people, to just say, I will avoid conflict at all costs. You lose something. I don't like conflict. I don't like confrontation, but there are times when it is necessary. And you have to pick your battles. But to just say, the implication of his statement is that all of that is evil. All of that is evil. But I think that's too broad a statement. It's not nuanced enough. Overall, I think that this speech is just word salad, which if you're paying attention to anything in the news, you should be getting used to word salad by now because it's all we're hearing. I'm just saying. But I don't want it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it in modern news right now. It makes me bonkers. But I don't want to hear it in my video games either. Just can we not just have fun? Can I not just play a good guy? Let me be the hero. I don't need this, you know? Ugh. Most of these games don't bother me because I think people play the game and they don't look at it and say, I'm going to mold my life after this game, like Skyrim. Love Skyrim. Skyrim is one of my all time favorites. I don't think most people play Skyrim and think, I'm going to build an altar to Debella. The average person playing Skyrim understands this is complete fantasy. These gods don't exist. It is all goofiness. But this is just a little too close to the way people can think today. And I have actually seen on the internet people like, oh, I really applied this to my own life. And I'm thinking, I hope that what you mean by that is that you're accepting responsibility for your own decisions and the consequences of your decisions. Now, that's a real thing. I believe most of what goes on in our lives is a direct result of the decisions we've made, whether good or bad, which is why it's important to really make informed decisions and really think things through and make those good decisions so that you have good outcomes. Totally believe that. But I don't feel like that's what this is saying. I don't feel like that's what this is saying. And so people are just becoming super self-focused and losing sight of a bigger picture. And this, to me, kind of lends credence to it. So this bothered me. This one actually really bothered me. I didn't like it. It left a really sour taste in my mouth at the end of the game. Overall, I did like the game. It was fun. Arno's cute, and I like my good looking video game men. So I didn't mind him. But and the parkour was really fun. Like the gameplay itself was really fun. I liked it probably the best for gameplay of the original games. But I just did want to point this out because this is something I see happening a lot in video games, and I think we got to keep an eye on it. We really got to watch this. It's getting worse. That brain rot is really taking over. And you guys, we can't just sit by. This is one of those cases where we're there. It's time to start drawing the line in the sand when it comes to video games and saying, stop doing this crazy crap in our video games. Stop putting real world problems into what's supposed to be entertainment. And I've said this before. I'll say it again. I don't need to feel represented in a game. I do not want to play a fat old white lady in a game. I play that every day already, and it's fine. But I play video games to escape reality and get to be outside of myself and do cool things outside of my own reality. Y'all don't need to work that stuff in. I don't care. You're not helping me. It does not help me. I do not feel seen to have that in a video game. I'm just saying. Brain rot is real and it is, it's not good. Anyway, there will be regular programming coming along. I will still be doing some of my lists, but I wanted to get that off my chest. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope it had some value for you. And if you like it, didn't like it, please leave me a comment and let me know. Give me some feedback. Do you think I'm taking this way too seriously, or do you think I'm not taking it seriously enough? Maybe I shouldn't be playing these. Maybe I should just get over it. Let me know what you think in the comment section, or let me know if there's a specific topic you would like me to address in this kind of style. I'd be happy to do that. Take a deep dive and look at it. Oh, I can't forget to tell you guys, I have a merch store. I have merch do 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 do. I have merch do 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 do. I have merch do 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 do. I have merch. Parody is legal. Do 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 do. Parody is legal. Do 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 do. Parody is legal. Do 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 do. Don't sue me. I have merch. Look, you can't see it very well, but I'm wearing my own t-shirt. Yes, it is my face. I wore this to youth camp, and this poor guy just kept looking at me and looking at me and looking at me. And finally, I was like, it's my face. It's my face on the t-shirt. It's me. And he was like, oh, get you some merch. There's t-shirts. You can get a hat. There's stickers. Do it up. Enjoy it. Anyway, that's it for now.